My father's office always smelled like expensive leather and old money. I stood there that Tuesday morning, watching him flip through the folder labeled Trust Fund Beneficiary, Mason Hale. My name. My supposed future. You either start Monday at Hale Construction, he said, not looking up, or you're on your own. Gerald Hale built his empire from nothing. Marble floors, $100 million contracts, buildings across 3 states. He expected me to inherit it all, continue the legacy, be another Gerald. But I wasn't him. I'd spent 2 years developing sustainable building concepts. Solar integration. Green materials. The future of construction. Everything his company ignored. I have my own plans, Dad. Verde build. Verde build. He said it like a curse. That eco-nonsense won't pay bills. You're 26 years old playing with toys while I'm offering you a real career. Then I'm on my own, I said quietly. His face hardened. He picked up the trust fund folder, my college fund, inheritance, everything he'd promised, and tore it in half. The sound echoed in the marble room. Get out of my office. I left without looking back. That night, Dad made his announcement at dinner. The whole family was there. Mom, my sister Claire, her husband, my younger brother Tyler. Mason has decided he's too good for Hale Construction, Dad said, cutting his steak with precise movements. So I've decided he's too good for this family's money. He's cut off. Completely. Mom's fork clattered against her plate. Gerald, that's extreme. It's final. He didn't raise his voice. He never needed to. Mason wants independence. Let's see how he likes it. Claire looked at me with something like pity. Tyler studied his plate. Nobody defended me. They never did when Dad made decisions. I finished my meal in silence. Then I went upstairs to my childhood room and started packing. By midnight, I'd moved everything I owned into a 1-bedroom apartment across town. The furniture came from thrift stores. The rent took most of my savings. But I had my laptop, my sketchpad labeled Verde Build, and something Dad never understood, purpose. I spread my designs across the cheap kitchen table and got to work. If he wanted me on my own, I'd show him exactly what that meant. The first 6 months were brutal. I pitched Verde Build to 12 investors. 11 never called back. The 12th laughed at my prototype and said, "Call me when you have something real." My prototype solar panel system collapsed during a demonstration. Water leaked through the supposedly waterproof seals. The materials I'd sourced were too expensive to scale. I was failing. Badly. I took side jobs to survive. Freelance drafting. CAD work for architects who paid late. Weekend construction gigs where nobody knew I was Gerald Hale's disgraced son. My apartment was freezing in winter because I kept the heat low to save money. I ate pasta and canned vegetables. Skipped meals when rent was due. But I kept working on Verde Build every night. Redesigning. Learning from failures. Researching materials and methods. One evening, exhausted from a double shift, I was listening to a podcast about housing trends. The host mentioned modular construction and green energy integration. Something clicked. Not full houses. Panels. Modular green panels that could retrofit existing buildings with solar capabilities. Scalable. Affordable. Practical. I grabbed my sketchpad and started drawing. By sunrise, I had a new concept. This time, it might actually work. I needed help. I couldn't build this alone. So I called Aria Chen, an engineering classmate who'd always believed my ideas had merit. We met at a coffee shop. I showed her the new designs. Modular solar panels that clip onto existing structures. No major renovation. DIY-friendly installation. What do you think? She studied my sketches for 10 minutes, asking technical questions I'd anticipated. Finally, she said, "I think you're onto something. What do you need?" "A partner. Someone who can engineer what I design." What's the pay? Nothing. Yet. But if this works, I'm in. She extended her hand. Let's build something real. We spent 3 months in Aria's garage, creating a working prototype. A garden shed powered entirely by our solar tile system. It worked. Actually worked. Then Aria found a small business grant competition. Local Innovation Fund. $250,000 for the winner. We submitted our application at midnight on the deadline. Then we waited. 6 weeks later, I got the call. We'd won. $250,000 to develop Verde Build. I sat in my apartment, staring at the acceptance email, and cried for the first time since leaving Dad's office. My sister's birthday party was at my parents' house. I almost didn't go. But Claire personally called and asked me to attend, so I showed up with a gift and low expectations. The house felt foreign now. Like a museum I'd once lived in but no longer belonged to. I was getting punch when I heard Dad's voice from the study. The door was cracked. He was talking to his business partners, cigars and whiskey. Mason chose garbage instead of greatness, he said, laughing. My son, the environmental warrior. Lives in a shoebox, works with scraps. Could have had everything. Chose nothing. The men laughed with him. Someone mentioned me being young and stupid. Another said I'd come crawling back eventually. I set down my cup and left through the side door. Nobody noticed. In my car, I checked my phone. A text from Aria, "You need to see this. Our prototype video just went viral. Local news picked it up. We're trending." I pulled up the video. 2 million views. Comments pouring in. People excited about affordable green energy. Architecture blogs sharing our work. I smiled and drove away from my father's house without looking back. The viral video changed everything. Our inbox exploded with inquiries. Homeowners wanted our panels. Small businesses asked about commercial applications. Contractors requested partnership meetings. Within 2 weeks, we had 300 orders. Then, 1,000. We had to rent warehouse space and hire installers. A construction trade magazine ran a feature, Verde Build, the future competitor to giants like Hale Construction. I bought that magazine and kept it. Not to gloat. To remember. We were growing faster than we could manage. Aria handled engineering and production. I managed design and client relationships. We worked 18-hour days and loved every minute. Money started flowing in. Real money. I moved into a better apartment. Bought a decent car. Paid off my student loans. But the best moment came when I got an email from a green building conference. They wanted me to speak on a panel about sustainable construction innovation. The other panelists included executives from major firms, including Hale Construction. I accepted immediately. This would be interesting. An investor reached out. Marcus Webb, founder of Green Tech Capital. He'd seen our growth and wanted to offer seed funding. $5 million for 20% equity. It was more money than I'd ever imagined. But it also meant giving up control, taking risks, scaling faster than comfortable. I met Aria at our warehouse. I don't know if we're ready for this. She laughed. You risked your entire family. Your inheritance. Your father's approval. What's a little capital compared to that? She was right. I'd already bet everything on this vision. Time to go all in. I called Marcus Webb back. Let's do it. We signed the papers that Friday. Verde Build became a multi-million-dollar company. With that funding, we could expand nationwide, develop new products, and compete with established firms, including Hale Construction. The irony wasn't lost on me. 2 years ago, I'd left Dad's company with nothing. Now I was building something that could challenge his empire. I didn't want revenge. I wanted validation. Proof that my vision wasn't garbage or nonsense. Proof that sustainable building was the future, whether Dad believed it or not. Inside Hale Construction, according to industry contacts, things were shifting. Profits had dipped for the first time in a decade. Younger clients wanted green options. Government contracts were prioritizing environmental standards. Everything Gerald Hale had dismissed as trends was becoming standard practice. And his company was falling behind. During one quarterly meeting, Gerald apparently blamed these green startups stealing contracts with cheap gimmicks. His secretary, Mrs. Palmer, had worked for him for 20 years. She reportedly mentioned that one particular startup was winning significant bids. Which one? Gerald asked. Verde Build, sir. There. I know what they are. His tone ended the conversation. I heard all this through an old college friend who worked at Hale. He texted me, "Your dad finally noticed you exist. He's not happy." I didn't respond. I was too busy preparing for our next big pitch, a government contract for affordable housing. Green materials, solar integration, community-focused design. Everything Dad's company couldn't offer. We submitted our proposal and waited. 2 weeks later, I got the call. Verde Build had won the contract. $15 million. 200 homes. Our biggest project yet. I was celebrating with the team when Aria pulled me aside. There's something you should know. Hale Construction was the other finalist. We beat them. I processed this. We'd gone head-to-head with Dad's company. And won. How did he take it? I asked. According to my contact at the bid office, he stormed in demanding to see the winning proposal. When he saw your name. She paused. Apparently he went pale, grabbed the documents, and left without a word. I should have felt triumphant. Instead, I felt strangely empty. This wasn't about beating Dad. It was about building something meaningful. But 3 days later, Dad showed up at our worksite. I was reviewing foundation plans when I saw his Mercedes pull up. He got out, looking older than I remembered. Walked straight to me. Still playing entrepreneur? His voice was cold. Still afraid of change? I replied calmly. His jaw tightened. You got lucky with one contract. Don't mistake luck for competence. This isn't luck, Dad. It's the future. The one you refused to see. He stepped closer. I'll see you in court. Trade interference. Patent violations. I'll bury this little company of yours. Then he left. And I knew the real fight was just beginning. Gerald Hale sued Verde Build 2 weeks later. His lawyers claimed we'd stolen proprietary information, violated construction patents, and engaged in unfair competitive practices. It was all garbage. I'd never used anything from Hale Construction. Every design was original, every method documented independently. But defending against the lawsuit cost money. Legal fees mounted. Some of our smaller investors got nervous. Aria and I met with our lawyer. This is a nuisance suit, he explained. Your father's trying to intimidate you, drain your resources. But you haven't done anything wrong. We'll win. How long will it take? I asked. 3 to 6 months. Maybe longer. We had a company to run. Projects to complete. We couldn't let this distract us. So we fought back hard, filed countermotions, demanded evidence he couldn't provide. For months later, we stood in court. Gerald's lawyers presented their case. Vague accusations, circumstantial evidence, nothing concrete. Our lawyer systematically destroyed every claim. When the judge dismissed the entire lawsuit, I saw Dad's face redden with anger. Outside the courthouse, reporters surrounded us. How do you feel about your father suing you? Disappointed, I said honestly. But not surprised. Innovation always threatens the old guard. The headline the next day, Father sues son, loses. The publicity was brutal for Hale Construction. Industry publications questioned Gerald's judgment. Clients reconsidered their contracts. The narrative became clear. Traditional company attacks innovative startup out of fear. But the lawsuit had damaged us too. 2 of our investors pulled out, spooked by the legal drama. We lost a major contract because the client didn't want to be involved in family drama. Our cash reserves were dangerously low. We had payroll to meet, projects to complete, but the bank account was draining fast. I sat in my office, looking at spreadsheets that didn't balance. We'd survived the lawsuit but might not survive the aftermath. Arya knocked on my door. I have a solution. It's not pretty, but it works. She explained she could mortgage her house. Equity loan. $200,000. I can't let you do that, I said immediately. It's not your choice. It's mine. Her voice was firm. I believe in this company. In what we're building. My house means nothing if we let this die. I wanted to argue, but we were out of options. She signed the papers that week. Verde Build survived. Barely. I promised myself I'd pay her back double. Whatever it took. We spent the next 6 months rebuilding. Completed our existing projects. Proved our reliability. Slowly regained investor confidence. Then, Arya had a breakthrough. She'd been working on new material science, walls that actively cooled themselves using phase change materials. No air conditioning needed. Energy costs slashed by 60%. She showed me the prototype in our lab. I touched the wall. One side was warm, the other cool. Magic. This could change everything, I whispered. It will, she corrected. If we can scale production. We patented the technology immediately. Then we pitched it to every major developer we could find. Eco Homes, a massive affordable housing developer, bit. They wanted to test it in a 100-unit project. If it worked, they'd sign a nationwide contract. The test phase took 4 months. Every metric exceeded expectations. Energy costs dropped 70%. Residents loved it. The developer called it revolutionary. The contract came through. $150 million. The largest deal in Verde Build's history. I called Arya from my car, hands shaking. We did it. We actually did it. She laughed. No, Mason, you did it. You refused to quit. The Entrepreneur of the Year awards were held downtown. Black tie event, industry leaders, press coverage. I wore my father's old cufflinks. The ones he'd given me for college graduation, before everything fell apart. When they called my name, I walked to the stage feeling surreal. 2 years ago, I'd been eating canned soup in a freezing apartment. Now I was being honored as a business innovator. I gave my speech about sustainable building, accessible green technology, and the importance of vision over tradition. The audience applauded. Cameras flashed. As I left the stage, I scanned the crowd. And I saw him. Dad, sitting in the back, expression completely blank. Just watching. Not clapping. Not leaving. Just there. Our eyes met for 3 seconds. Then he looked away. The next morning, I got a call from my old friend at Hale Construction. Your dad watched your entire speech on the monitor in his office. 3 times. Then he called his banker. Why? Hale Construction's debts are unmanageable. Your dad's facing a crisis. The board's pushing for changes. I hung up, processing this information. Dad's empire was crumbling. And somehow, I didn't feel victorious. Just sad. Over the next 6 months, Hale Construction's situation worsened. Key suppliers switched to cheaper, greener competitors, including Verde Build. Major clients didn't renew contracts. The company hemorrhaged money. Industry publications ran articles, "Is traditional construction dead?" and "How green startups are disrupting the industry." Every article mentioned Verde Build as a success story, and Hale Construction as a cautionary tale. I tried not to follow the news. We had our own business to run. But it was impossible to ignore. My father's company, the empire he'd built, the legacy he'd valued over his own son, was failing. Then I got a call from Claire. "Mason, we need to talk. It's about Dad." We met at a neutral coffee shop. She looked exhausted. "The board is forcing him to sell. The company's drowning in debt. Environmental fines from old projects. Declining revenue. They need a buyer." "Why are you telling me this?" "Because he won't admit it, but he's scared. Terrified. That company is his entire identity. Without it." She trailed off. I didn't know what to say. Part of me wanted to feel vindicated. He'd cut me off, sued me, tried to destroy what I'd built. Now his company was dying while mine thrived. But mostly, I just felt tired. Gerald Hale called an emergency board meeting. According to my sources, he looked older, defeated. The marble office that once symbolized his power now felt like a tomb. "Gentlemen," he began, voice steady despite everything. "We need a buyer. I've approached 3 firms. All declined. Our debt load is too high, our reputation too damaged." The board members exchanged glances. His CFO spoke carefully. "Gerald, there is one option. We could open the bidding publicly. See what interest we get." "Absolutely not. I won't let vultures pick apart what I built. Then the bank will liquidate by month's end." "Is that preferable?" Silence. Finally, Gerald nodded. "Fine. Open the bidding. But screen carefully. I won't sell to just anyone." The announcement went out that week. Hale Construction seeking acquisition offers. Multiple parties expressed interest, including one bidder who signed under a shell company name, VB Holdings. Arya had set it up. "If he knows it's us, he'll refuse," she explained. "This way, we get in the room. Then we reveal ourselves." It felt manipulative. But it was business. And Dad had taught me that business required strategy. The board reviewed 5 acquisition proposals. VB Holdings offered the best terms: fair price, employee retention guarantees, operational autonomy during transition. Gerald's CFO recommended accepting. "They're offering 30% above market value. We won't get a better deal." Gerald reviewed the paperwork suspiciously. "Who's behind VB Holdings? The proposal doesn't list principals." "Shell companies are standard in acquisitions. Protects both parties during negotiations." Gerald didn't like it. But he had no choice. "Fine. Set up the meeting. Let's see who we're dealing with." The meeting was scheduled for Thursday at 2 p.m. Hale Construction's main boardroom. I'd been in that room once before, when Dad tore up my trust fund. I arrived early with Arya and our legal team. Wore the same suit I'd worn to the Entrepreneur Awards. Carried the same confident energy I'd built over 2 hard years. When the boardroom doors opened and I walked in wearing the VB Holdings visitor badge, every face turned. The board members looked confused. The CFO's eyes widened. And Dad went completely white. His mouth opened, but no sound came out. "Good to see you again, Dad," I said calmly, taking my seat. "Let's discuss terms." The room was silent for a full 10 seconds. Then Dad found his voice. "This is a joke. Get out." "I'm here as a legitimate bidder," I said evenly. "VB Holdings, Verde Build Holdings, has submitted the highest offer. Your board invited us. We're here to negotiate in good faith." The CFO cleared his throat. "Gerald, we should hear their proposal." "I don't care what they're offering. I won't sell my company to my son's startup." "Then you'll sell to the bank," I said quietly. "For half what we're offering. And they'll liquidate everything. Is that what you want?" His jaw worked, but he said nothing. The board chairman spoke. "Let's proceed professionally. Mr. Hale, Please present your proposal. I opened my folder. Verde Build is prepared to acquire Hale Construction for $80 million. That's 30% above current market valuation. We'll retain all employees, honor existing contracts, and maintain the Hale name in some capacity. However, I continued, meeting Dad's eyes. We'll also be addressing several issues. Unpaid environmental fines totaling $12 million. OSHA violations at 3 sites. And outdated practices that don't meet current green building standards. I slid a detailed report across the table. We've done our due diligence. These problems need fixing. We have the capital and expertise to do it. Dad tried to bluff. Claimed the fines were exaggerated, the violations minor, the practices acceptable. I calmly cited specific cases, dates, documentation. The board members looked increasingly uncomfortable. They'd known about these issues. Had ignored them because Dad was in charge. Your company is bleeding, I said, keeping my voice steady. $3 million in quarterly losses. Major clients leaving. You're 6 months from bankruptcy. We're offering a lifeline. I don't need a lifeline from my son, he spat. You need it from someone. We're the only ones offering fair terms. The CFO spoke up. Gerald, we've reviewed their financials. Verde Build is solvent, growing, and has the capital to absorb our debt. This is the best option. I'd rather burn it down than hand it to him. The chairman intervened. You don't have that luxury. The board has a fiduciary duty to shareholders. If you won't negotiate, we'll proceed without you. Dad's face reddened. But he was cornered, and he knew it. I slid the final purchase agreement across the table. Sign, or the bank liquidates by Friday. Your choice. He stared at the papers for a long moment. Then, hands shaking, he picked up a pen. The signing took 20 minutes. Dad barely looked at me. When it was done, when Hale Construction officially became part of Verde Build, he stood without a word and left the room. The board members congratulated me. Discussed transition logistics. Scheduled follow-up meetings. Standard acquisition stuff. But I was thinking about the look on Dad's face. Not anger. Not even shame. Just defeat. After everyone left, I walked through the building alone. Past the marble lobby. Through the executive offices. Down hallways I'd imagined working in as a kid. I stopped at Dad's office. The door was open. He'd already cleared his personal items. The desk was empty. The walls bare. I sat in his chair, the same one I'd stood before when he tore up my trust fund, and looked out at the city skyline. This should have felt like victory. Instead, it felt like responsibility. 500 employees now depended on me. A legacy that wasn't mine to build but was now mine to preserve. I pulled out my phone and called Aria. It's done. Hale Construction is ours. How do you feel? Honestly, terrified, and sad, and determined not to screw this up. She laughed. That sounds about right. See you tomorrow, boss. The media coverage exploded overnight. Son's startup acquires father's empire, read one headline. From disowned to owner, Mason Hale's unlikely triumph, read another. My phone wouldn't stop ringing. Interview requests. Congratulations from industry contacts. Curiosity from investors. I ignored most of it. But one text made me pause. From Dad's number, you win. Just 2 words. No explanation. No context. I stared at those words for a long time. Later that evening, sitting in my apartment, I thought about calling him back. Explaining that this wasn't about winning. That I'd never wanted to destroy him, just to build something meaningful. But I didn't call. Because he wouldn't hear me. He never had. Instead, I focused on integration plans. Combining Verde Build's innovation with Hale Construction's infrastructure. retraining employees on green building practices, honoring Dad's legacy while transforming it into something sustainable. It was daunting. But I'd done daunting before. I'd started with nothing. Built a company from sketches and determination. Survived lawsuits and setbacks. This was just the next chapter. And I was ready. 3 weeks later, I drove to my parents' house. Dad had stopped answering calls. Claire said he barely left his study. Mom answered the door. She looked tired. He's in his study. Good luck. I found him sitting in his leather chair, staring at nothing. The room smelled like stale coffee and defeat. Dad. We need to talk. He didn't look at me. Come to gloat. No. To understand. Finally, he met my eyes. I built everything for you. Hale Construction was supposed to be your legacy. And you threw it away. You built walls, Dad. I built homes that breathe. There's a difference. I gave you everything. You gave me expectations. Control. A path I never chose. I sat across from him. I wanted to work with you. To bring new ideas to Hale Construction. But you couldn't see past tradition. Silence filled the room. Then, quietly, he said, I was afraid. Of what? That you'd change everything. That your way would prove mine was wrong. That I'd become obsolete. For the first time, I saw my father as human. Flawed. Scared. Not the marble giant I'd grown up fearing. You're not obsolete, I said. Your experience built something real. I'm just evolving it. He looked away. Neither of us spoke. But something had shifted. The rebranding happened fast. Verde Hale Innovations. A combination of Verde Build's vision and Hale Construction's foundation. The new logo featured a tree growing through building blocks. Tradition meeting innovation. Employee morale soared. For years, they'd watched Hale Construction decline while Dad refused to change. Now they had leadership willing to invest in training, better practices, and sustainable growth. Dad's longtime assistant, Mrs. Palmer, left him a note on his desk. He leads the way you wished you could. She sent me a copy. I kept it in my office drawer. The business transformation took 6 months. We retrofitted all Hale projects with green technology. Trained crews on sustainable methods. Pitched clients on the future of construction. Revenue increased 23% in the first quarter. Industry publications called Verde Hale Innovations the model for construction's future. I worked 18-hour days again. But now I had infrastructure, capital, and a team of 500. What I'd built alone in a garage was now a major operation. And Dad's legacy wasn't erased. It was transformed. Which, I realized, was better than destruction. I established the Hale Building Scholarship. Full tuition for young people interested in construction who couldn't afford college. Priority given to students from working-class backgrounds. I named it after Dad. Not to mock him, but because his story, building an empire from nothing, had actually inspired me. I just needed to build mine differently. The press loved it. Mason Hale honors father despite public feud ran in several outlets. Some framed it as forgiveness. Others as PR. I didn't care about their interpretations. I did it because those kids deserved opportunities. Just like I deserved a chance to pursue my vision, even when Dad couldn't see it. The first scholarship recipient was a girl from the same neighborhood where I'd lived in that freezing apartment. Her essay about wanting to build homes that don't hurt the earth could have been mine 5 years ago. At the scholarship ceremony, I saw Dad in the back row. He'd come alone. When our eyes met, he nodded once. Just that. But it meant something. After the ceremony, reporters asked about our relationship. We're working on it, I said honestly. Family's complicated. But we're trying. That felt more true than any victory speech could have been. 6 months after the acquisition, Dad invited me to dinner. Not at the family house. At a small Italian restaurant we used to go to when I was a kid. We ordered. Made awkward small talk. Then, finally, he spoke. I didn't want to sell to you because I was afraid you'd erase everything I built. I know. But you didn't. You made it better. Stronger. I was wrong to fight you. I set down my fork. You weren't wrong to want a legacy. You were wrong to think there was only one way to build it. He nodded slowly. The scholarship, using my name, why? Because you taught me something important, even if you didn't mean to. You showed me that building something from nothing takes courage. I just applied that lesson differently. Your mother says you're a better leader than I was. I learned from watching you. The good and the bad. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a small wooden box. Inside was an old brass seal, the original Hale Construction Company stamp from 1978. This was my father's. He gave it to me when I started the company. I want you to have it. I held the seal, feeling its weight. History. Legacy. Trust. Thank you, Dad. We finished dinner talking about projects, ideas, the future. Not as father and son. As two builders finding common ground. The groundbreaking ceremony for the first Hale Verde Foundation housing project was on a clear spring morning. 200 sustainable homes for families who couldn't afford traditional housing. Green materials. Solar integration. Everything I dreamed about building. The plaque read, "Built with vision. Honoring tradition. Creating tomorrow." I stood at the podium, looking at the crowd. Arya beside me. My team. Industry leaders. And in the third row, my father. He'd come. That meant everything. 3 years ago, I began, my father cut me out of his will because I refused to work for his company. He thought I was throwing away everything he'd built. I paused. Turns out, I didn't need his company. I just needed a reason to build my own. But I also didn't want to destroy what he'd created. I wanted to evolve it. I gestured to the project site. This is what's possible when tradition meets innovation. When old foundations support new growth. When family learns to build together instead of apart. The audience applauded. I looked at Dad. He was smiling. Actually smiling. After the ceremony, he approached. I'm proud of you, son. 3 years. All the pain, struggle, and rebuilding. And finally, those words. Thanks, Dad. That means a lot. We shook hands. Then, awkwardly, we hugged. The kind of hug that acknowledges past hurt but chooses to move forward anyway. As I drove away from the site, I thought about the journey. From disowned son to company owner. From freezing apartment to industry leader. From rejection to redemption. Dad had cut me from his will. But he'd given me something more valuable, the motivation to build my own legacy. And in the end, I'd built something that honored his, even as it transformed everything he thought he knew. Legacy isn't about controlling the future. It's about building foundations strong enough to support whatever comes next. Dad taught me to build. I just learned to build differently. And that made all the difference.